college basketball fans, welcome back to the College Ball Show. He's Marshall, I'm Chris, and we're here to talk, what else? Some college ball, right? A little college basketball, and we'll definitely start out like we normally do, recapping from the weekend. We'll kind of brush upon a couple of items from the week since our last podcast last Monday. But one of the biggest games going in and coming out really was Auburn, number 2, now number 1, against 12 Kentucky. 80-71. Auburn got it done. And the vivid seats, we always talk about vivid seats when we're breaking down the crappy pick of the week for our college football show. But the vivid seats were like $450 was the cheapest seat. And when you watch the game, you could tell how just crazy that was. I mean, that environment is right up there with anything you'll see in the country in that. Not overall, like every time you go to Auburn for the last 25 years. I'm not saying that. But right now, they got that thing going. And it was freaking loud. And, you know, I think a lot of folks will kind of look at Auburn. Rightfully so. They won the game, and so they're number 1 and all that good stuff. It's a great win. But you can't really look down on Kentucky after that one. First of all, they kept it close without their best player for a chunk of the game. So I was actually impressed with both teams in that one. Really no loser in that one. And you know how last Saturday is a little bit more upset and ridden? That's not the case. However, we got some big matchups tonight. We got a big matchup in the Big-12, going to start in a couple hours, 3 hours. On Tuesday, we have a Big Ten matchup, and then later in the night, I think it's 10 Central, 11 on the East, Arizona and UCLA, which will be, a big game. And you never know how that Pac-12 closes. That might be something that's a deciding factor come March. And then, of course, this weekend, got a lot of great games in the Big East as well this week. And then we have the Big 12 and SEC Challenge. Big game on Sunday in the Big Ten. So, yeah, we got a lot to talk about, no doubt about it. But if this is your first time listening to the College Ball Show, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. You don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope if you don't want to and download the show directly there or listen to the browser. You can find this here podcast, The College Ball Show, under the Rope-A-Dope Radio umbrella on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, Amazon Music. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. And one more thing. If you're thinking about cutting the cord or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called DirecTV Stream. The prices start as low as $69.99 a month. It's the best of live TV and on demand. No annual contracts. No hidden fees. If you upgrade to the Choice or Ultimate package, that'll give you 3 free months of HBO Max. Plus, you get to enjoy regional sports networks with no additional fees, which is becoming harder and harder to find. If you go all the way to the Premier package, that'll give you HBO Max and Showtime already included. That's DirecTV Stream. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host. And, before we get into the basketball side of things, wild card weekend beyond one game was garbage. It really was. Just blowout central. And not just blowout central, but like early in the first quarter blowout stuff. Where at half you're like, wow, when's the next game coming on? But man, the second round, the divisional round, it sure did make up for it, Marshall.
Yeah, if you're a sports fan at all, I mean, that was 4 NFL games where, and I heard someone say it perfectly, basically, when you start off the weekend, you must have been saying, the Bengals and Titans will be the game of the week to talk about. And then every game progressively after that was the game of the week to talk about. And it finished with the Mahomes and Josh Allen game, which was a tremendous game of football. I know a lot of people feel bad for Josh Allen, but I think he'll have his time to be there again. But, that was just a beautiful weekend of football. And if we can get a March Madness type weekend that can rival that in perspective, that could be one of the coolest marches of all time. It's rare you get just 4 games that end in walk-offs in football. So yeah, that was a beautiful sports weekend, which I said hopefully trickles into a very fun and exciting postseason of college basketball as well, Chris.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But we are in January, so there's a whole lot of basketball to be played. And, Auburn, I think it's 3 straight now. They've beaten Kentucky. I want to say that's the first time since like the 70s, I think the stat read. I'm pretty sure. But it's the first time AP-wise that they're number 1 in the whole country. It really came down to like a 12-2 run that just under 3 minutes it took. And next thing you know, you look up, Auburn's up 45-40 with 13 to play, right around 13 minutes to play. And after that, they just held them off enough. They just pushed them off enough. Yeah, there it is. It marks the second time in Auburn history that they've beaten Kentucky 3 straight times. That was 74-76. Oh, 3 straight times at home. Oh, that's a little different. The Tigers they've won 15 straight games. That's the 3rd longest winning streak in school history. So, that says a lot. That definitely says a lot. It was a really, fun game to watch. Like I said, the energy in that place was just freaking ridiculous. And there wasn't like one player that stood out, for Auburn per se. They got it from a variety of angles, couple of guys off the bench that played quality minutes. They shot the ball, though, basically 57%, and got to the line. I mean, this is kind of where it was because, Kentucky shot at 50%, but they got to the line 29 times and made 24 of those free throws compared to 8 out of 10 on the other side of Kentucky. Auburn's got this thing. We know Pearl, wherever he goes, you may have to, give up some wins eventually, right? Because, something may happen as far as recruiting violations. But the guy knows how to coach, and wherever the guy goes, man, they got it pumping. And Auburn is looking the part right now as a team that could possibly make the Final Four.
Yeah, and you kind of stole my thunder there. Because I'm just going to add on to what you're saying. That's incredible free throw shooting, and you do see this as a trend a lot of times in college basketball, Chris, where the home team will have more free throws than the away team. That's not saying the game is rigged or that that the refs were a bad crew. It's just normally the home team plays a little more aggressive. But I really think that was a big part of the advantage for them because Kentucky only shot 10 free throws and Auburn made 24 out of 29. And the fact that every guy on the team, no player missed more than 2, is 3 out of 4, 3 for 3, 4 out of 6, 6 out of 7, 3 out of 3, 5 out of 6. And I say those numbers because...
And everyone shot one, too. That's something to say just off the bat. Like, that's crazy.
Well, yeah, the fact that I read 6 players' free throws stat lines, and so one guy went 4 out of 6, and that's your worst percent. Do you realize how many college basketball games you watch as a fan, and you're like, oh Christ, this guy can't shoot free throws for shit. Like, there's a lot. Well, hell, I mean, I know there's guys in the NBA, but for the most part, a college basketball free throw team is anything far from a lock. But when every guy in your team shoots 75 to 80%, that's actually really damn impressive. Because, I get, Chris, that maybe your starting point guard's an 85% free throw shooter. But when the whole team shoots 83%, that's actually really impressive. That tells me that, when it comes down to games later in the year, there's something to be said for that. Because one of the biggest things, I know I'm jumping ahead here a bit, but when you do get into March, one thing we always look at and talk about is, how does a team shoot free throws? And that is kind of a sign of a good team because, as you and I well know, there's a lot of teams each year in college basketball where your season ends because you are an awful free throw shooting team. So, yeah. I mean, obviously there's more to the game than just this, but That's an impressive stat. Like you said, that stat was amongst 6 players. And on top of that, you shot 57% in the game. You only were 6 of 16 for threes, which actually, I give them credit for college. Because you do watch some college basketball games where you see teams chuck it from 3 like they're Stephen Curry, and it's like, dude, like, you can get off a better shot in your offense. So you didn't get crazy from deep. You were active from the line, and that shows you're being really aggressive. That probably ties into the crowd being crazy. You play with energy, you got momentum, and that just goes to show you're attacking more, getting to the line more. Like, all those positives kind of tied in together. And the last part for me is, surprisingly, the Jabari Smith, like, who's kind of, at least on ESPN's kind of been shown as the Auburn stud, who's like, could be like a top 10 draft pick. He didn't have a huge game, and his team won. So if your future lottery pick had an average game and you won, that's just a nice win to build off of. And obviously, with them beating Kentucky, like, this is just, it's like been a slow buildup of a lot of positives for Auburn. Last year they had a stud point guard, but they didn't play defense, and when games they got cold, they couldn't do anything. But this is a whole different squad, Chris. And again, first time ever number 1 in the country. Credit to them. That's awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. And I was actually, for some reason, I was thinking it was later in the first quarter, or first half, but he only played 9 minutes, Ty. And so I want to kind of go on the flip side of that and reiterate how, come March, how good Kentucky could be at that time too, because to lead this game a fair amount of the way, and then to keep grinding and stay in that game and make them beat you without your best player, that says a lot as well. Baylor won on the road at Oklahoma. Duke just handled Syracuse. Syracuse obviously not the squad that we knew for so many years, really since the 80s. We talked about how tough it can be at Kansas State. Kansas just snuck one out 78-75. Like I said, not a lot of major upsets. Tennessee did bounce back against LSU 64-50.
This LSU team is weird. Their offense is so crazy hot and cold. And again, I don't know, maybe it's their offensive style. I've only seen a handful of games, but that to score, I don't know, to score it, to almost have a really efficient offense and really cold. Clearly they're going through kind of a dry spell here. Your last 3 games, you've scored 58, 67, and 50. Yeah, games before, 65, 79. It just, with all the talent the team has, they seem to be very weird, because they were kind of get a lot of the SEC love. If we've been doing this podcast a month ago, there would have been a lot of LSU hype, and rightfully so. And again, I'm not saying they're a bad team now that's not worth considering, but how you go from being like a top 10 really recognized team who beat Kentucky and Tennessee and Florida all in 1 week, and now you lose to Arkansas, Bama, Tennessee. I know that every team does go through waves, but their inconsistency, and to score 50 points in a college basketball game is, I don't know, that just seems odd. LSU, man, they're if you're going to bet them, you better hope they're having an on day, because then when they have their off days, their offense goes from awesome to bad. And mind you, when they lost to Arkansas, that game finished on a 17-2 Arkansas run over the last 7 minutes of the game. So be wearful if you bet LSU, and hope that they got their shooting shoes on that day.
How 17-2? That's how the game closed. Was that like 5 minutes or something?
The last 7 minutes of the game, it was a 17-2 run.
So it's 7 minutes of hell, not necessarily 48 minutes of hell. 70 minutes, 17 minutes, 7 minutes of hell.
No, yes. I know.
That's a rough way to end. But, like I keep reiterating, at least it's January, and they have time to get their stuff together. But that is a good point. The last chunk of weeks prior to that, like you said, a month ago, they were looking the part, and maybe they can get it. And speaking of riding the wave, or the wave kind of falling off the board and letting crash you, TCU beat Iowa State. We talked about them last week. TCU is up to 13-3 now. They didn't shoot well from the field. They did 49%, 25 of 51. But from three, they were 4 of 15. Here's the problem, though. Iowa State was 3 of 26. So that really, that hurt them big time.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and Iowa State, they had a good start. They got a nice win over, what was it? Was it Texas the last time we were talking about them? But now you start to look, they had a really close game with Baylor. I'll say that. And then they beat Texas Tech. So, it wasn't surprising that they lost to Texas Tech, playing them at Texas Tech, beat them twice. That's going to be difficult. But now you look and you go, man, they've lost 4 of their last 5. A lot of times you think, man, they're starting to fall off. But, at Oklahoma, I just mentioned, at Texas Tech especially, and then a 1-point loss at Kansas. I don't know. They've had some, they had a little drop in their program. Now it looks like they're climbing their way back up. They're 8th in the Big-12, so they're 14-5. They still got plenty of time to do something here, but they have 2 games now, Marshall, at Oklahoma State and then Missouri. Then it's Kansas, Texas, West Virginia. So Iowa State's definitely got to right the ship here in the next couple of games to get their groove back.
Well, and that's one thing we talked about last week, which I really wanted to give a lot of props to them because, and again, I say this because this has kind of been one of my second or third favorite teams to follow. I'm a Tar Heels fan with my heart, and I, kind of support Iowa State with some others. But again, a handful of years ago, they were a tournament team. They went, had Sweet 16 potential. I think they lost in the second round. And then for 2 years, you were bottom of your conference. And then you're all of a sudden back to being ranked in the top 10 this year. And it's just such a quick transformation, especially under a new head coach. So I think it's kind of expectable or possible to think that, hey, they're on the right path, but can you really go from last place to being ranked in the top 10 and playing that season out? I think that, like you said, they're going the right way, but to have games like this, that's probably just realistic. Because you really don't see college teams ever go from a tournament team to dead last or very, very bottom to, back to being a top 10 team. That's such a huge transformation, Chris. I guess realistically, we probably should consider that, hey, they're going to lose a couple of games like this with a new coach and they're, kind of just reworking the ship together, whatever phrase you want to use there.
Yeah, that's a good call. Another team that had a great week and are on the roll, though, I shouldn't say another team as if we were just talking about Iowa State, because that's just the complete opposite. But, they started out, Marquette is, they got a tough schedule. Like early in the year, Marquette beat Illinois. I remember watching that game. And then they had this stretch where they got cleanly beat by Wisconsin, but that's at Wisconsin. Came back at Kansas State, snuck that one out. Ukala, Xavier, UConn, Pause, Creighton. So they went on this losing streak, but now all of a sudden they got their groove back a little, or a lot of it, not a little bit. We're just going to talk about that Providence team too. They whooped them up at the turn of the year here. Georgetown, DePaul, not a big deal there, but then a 1-point win. Seton Hall, who, has definitely fallen from grace this year as far as AP ranked and all that, where they could be and should be, a lot of people will say, but their Big East ranking is a little rougher. And then Nova, and then Xavier. Like, they got, but it doesn't stop for Marquette though, Marshall. At Seton Hall, who's going to be pissed off, right? They need a big win. At Providence, Villanova, UConn. We're going to find out a whole lot about Marquette in the coming weeks.
And and again, I've become a Big East guy for a man who my co-host used to root me back in the day for even questioning the tournament. Now it's become my favorite conference to watch.
It was more of a downplay. You
Yeah.
would downplay it a little bit.
Yeah. Which looking back was pretty foolish after the runs that Kemba Walker had, and just so, I mean, looking back,
That's when the ACC was bumping though a lot, like crazy. So I understand.
It was Juan Dixon, you and Carolina, So I hear you. But yeah, they're playing a great style of basketball. I am very happy that Shaka's come in there and I can support them again. Marquette had a former Duke coach who I won't name, and he did okay, but he didn't do a great job there. They were kind of near the bottom of the barrel every year in the Big East, and bring in Shaka, who probably wanted to try to rebound his career because he went to Texas with a lot of hope, and I would say overall he probably felt that he was a bit of a disappointment there. Like he didn't reach the goals he probably wanted to achieve in Texas, so he gets a second shot to kind of recreate his love he had at VCU, and he's been doing a pretty good job. Last couple of years when Marquette was under Wojo, their offense was really kind of their biggest issue. And since he's taken over, I don't know if it's maybe been the new players, a new style, but they've become a really good team with assists, and they've been actually a really good team at shooting the three. So obviously, that's not always a consistent in college basketball. You can't live and die by a three because when you do, good things and bad things can happen. But so far as a team, they've been shooting the three ball consistently pretty damn well. They're near the top of the Big East. And when you do that, Chris, and new coach, new system, and you got some players that can help you, and you can hit, 7-8 threes a game, you're going to win a lot of basketball games that way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And just kind of wrap it up some of the last several days since the last time we did our podcast. That game after we did our podcast, Purdue and Illinois went double overtime. That was freaking really, really fun. Florida State, we talked about, when we were breaking down the conferences, which we're about to do and see where everybody's at, don't count out Florida State. Every year they're at least going to be there. Some years they go a little further than others, of course. Some years they get beat early, but they managed to get by Duke in overtime, 79-78. That was a big, big win for them. No doubt about it. That Kentucky A&M game was a really close game, and Kentucky ended up, getting the job done and pulling away. Friday night, both Michigan State and Wisconsin. Michigan State got a big, big win on the road at Wisconsin. And then Maryland beat Illinois, and, Illinois had been on a nice run too. Maryland showing some signs of love, but that was a nice little matchup on Friday night. I really dug that because I kind of got off early from the brewery, and I was able to go back to back on DVR, with those games. This Friday, not so much. There's not a whole lot there, but when you kind of go, coast to coast, and, like my co-host said last week, you don't want to get in the car with me if you're going to take a trip around this country, because I'm probably going to go all over the place. And, the high gas prices right now, you might as well just take a flight. But Providence sitting there at 6-1, 12-0 at home. They faced a couple of ranked teams, no doubt about it. Nova 7-2 at the top there, but look at Seton Hall, 3-4, 12-5, and like I mentioned, you can't count them out. They're only 3-4, but at this point, it's really anybody's conference, like we said last week. Well, in a sense, anyway, because even Seton Hall is only three. Like when you look at it, you go, it's only 3 games out. You look at it and go, how are they only 3 games out? But yeah, Providence, dude, you gotta love Providence in this one here, just because they're kind of back to being a good, a good team. I remember them late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s being a pretty good squad. They've had obviously some coaches back. They had Patino back in the day. But what do you think here a week later, looking at these standings, man?
I think, obviously the conference is off to a good start. And I think besides St. John's being where they are, I think they're a bit of a disappointment. Now, I also do realize that not every team can have a winning record, so someone's got to beat someone. I think they've underachieved. I think that Creighton, sitting at 4-2, has probably overachieved. They lost a good chunk of NBA talent 2 years ago and a good group of seniors last year. So I would say that they're a bit surprising. But besides that, you have pretty much a well-balanced top-to-bottom league where Providence is ranked, Nova's ranked, UConn's ranked, Marquette and Xavier both ranked. And Seton Hall, who, even though they're not ranked, should be a tournament team who on a given day can drop 80 and when focused, and again, I like watching this team play, but my God, they can be frustrating. When focused is I would say for sure a top 20 team in the country. But, their 3-4 record shows that, on a given day, not so much either. So, yeah, I think that give it a month, Chris. So when we're doing this podcast in February, I'd be curious to see if Providence stays up there. I like their team. They got a stud center in Watson, who's probably one of the better bigs in the country. Again, I know it's a bit of a broad statement, but he's for sure one of the best bigs in the Big East. And, I think there's something to be said for that. His team's playing great basketball. They've had a coach be there for quite a while. But I would say that people are probably surprised because this is a Providence team who is normally, 5th or 6th every year in the Big East. So that's kind of like that outside bubble tournament team. So you go from a legit contending bubble tournament team that normally goes to the NIT to now you're leading a Big East conference with a handful of ranked teams. Like, can you keep it up? So again, off to a great start, but it wouldn't surprise me in a couple of weeks if Nova was up top there. I hope they're not. That's one of the few teams I don't like in the Big East, but if Providence keep it up or if they're going to...
Why is that? Why don't you like Villanova? I forgot.
I've just,
I forgot the reason why. Does it have to do with like a last-second shot in a national championship game?
You're cutting out. I think I lost you there for a second, Chris. I might want to recheck the audio when we do our show again. But yeah, I'm a Providence man. I like a lot of teams. I've just never been a Nova guy. So you can reason that how you'd like. But hey, credit to the Friars, and I hope that they keep their winning ways up, my friend. I missed that question, but we can keep going with the show.
John Rothstein, he had this tweet that says Providence is now 16-2 and after their best start under Ed Cooley. And prior to this, because like you said, they normally are that 1 year where they actually won a game in the tourney as well during the 15-16 season, they started out 15-3 after 18 games. So we definitely will see. Now, I just was that Marquette? That was Marquette's schedule, right? Yeah, that was Marquette's schedule. Because that schedule that I read where it's 4 ranked teams in a row or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that was Marquette. I was like, well, let's give them a little pass here the next 4 games and see if they can go 2 for 2. But that's kind of what Marquette's probably got to accomplish is go 2 for 2. I mentioned Illinois and how hot they have been, especially on the road in the Big Ten. Going in, they lost the game to Maryland, but they had won 11 out of their last 12 Big Ten games. I forgot to add that. But, yeah, man, it is a really good basketball, basketball conference, and I'm happy that they were able to salvage it. I know the last couple of years we've been kind of honing on that, but it is nice because you start to see, conference, like it's not a Power 5. You have to include the Big East, it is a damn good basketball, conference, and it's cool because, in the East and even in the Midwest, basketball is a pretty big, deal, no doubt about it. So that's pretty cool. Moving down to the SEC, we see Auburn up there with the 2-game lead on Kentucky. They're 7-0. We've kind of talked a lot about them. They've only lost the neutral site game. I didn't even think about that. Like I said, they won 15. They're 15-0 home and away, but their neutral site they got beat. A&M is pretty kind of underrated. Not ranked. 15-4, 10-1 at home, 4-2 in conference. Like I said, it took everything out of Kentucky to kind of sneak that one in at the end. They didn't hit a buzzer, but once they got up, they kind of just held it enough. I really, I've only seen a little bit of Mississippi State, so I couldn't tell you Alabama has kind of gotten better over the last few years, so they're always a tough team. We mentioned Arkansas year in and year out, but like you said, Tennessee and LSU 3-4 and 4-3. The conference is, I mean, we can kind of, a lot of people will be like, oh, just give it to Auburn. That's cool, but the freaking, I mean, this is a good conference. I know there was a lot of talk about that, and actually, I think they have. Let me double check something real quick. Don't they have, according to Joe Lunardi's bracketology? Oh, I'm sorry, that was the Big 12. The Big 12 has 8, and the SEC, Big East, and Big 10 are tied with 7 apiece right now. And a lot of people are saying, hey, don't sleep on the Mountain West. I've been hearing that this last week. According to Joey, they got 3 teams in. So we'll keep an eye on that conference too. Maybe not week by week, but does it just kind of feel like Auburn, Kentucky, and the rest got to figure it out from here?
Excuse me, sorry. I would say it's a disappointment if you are a Bama fan, an Arkansas fan, of late LSU too, because Bama started off the year pretty good, and they had a great year last year. Arkansas again had some good hype because they got Musselman as their coach. They had a good turnaround last year, and LSU seems to be averaging about 50 points a game for the last 3 weeks, and Tennessee is 4-3. I feel like the middle of the SEC, Chris, is a very strong middle, but it's almost like they're underachieving. And Mississippi State, and again, not that I've read a whole bunch of magazines, but I do remember reading some gambling previews on them, and they were projected to be like a near the bottom of the conference team going into the season. So, and I know it is super early, but even the fact that Mississippi State is above Bama, Arkansas, and LSU, even if it's by a game or 2 in Tennessee, that is kind of a bit surprising. And Texas A&M, they haven't been really good for quite a while. So Auburn, Kentucky makes sense. Like those teams are maybe going to slug it out this year. And you would assume they'll get all together, but really Mississippi State, Bama, Arkansas, LSU should all be, in theory, strong tournament teams this year. And they're all kind of basically playing 500 ball, which does surprise me a little bit. Maybe it is how the schedule's laid out, because I do know a handful of those teams have played each other, so I get that people do have to lose. But, yeah, I think the middle part of that conference is stronger than it shows, and those teams should kind of work their way up. And I assume that the top, it should be more top-heavy in a couple of weeks. And if you're Mississippi State and A&M, hey, keep doing what you're doing. But I think you're probably exceeding expectations as of now.
Yeah, I think it was that 2000. It was a few years ago that A&M, I believe, made the tournament. But you're right; it's not like they're consistently getting it done. I just checked. We're gonna cross the country again to the Pac-12, and I just checked Arizona and UCLA, UCLA, aka UCLA, their schedules, and UCLA definitely has a tougher schedule remaining. But, I kind of put a lot of emphasis on this game tomorrow night, 3 against 7 in the country for obvious reasons. But they, play, again, very soon. It must have been like a reschedule, because I know that they've been having issues as far as, pausing and everything. I know they lost to Oregon. But, yeah, they play Tuesday night, and then 2 games later, they play again. This is UCLA's schedule. And I think it's just 1 game later for Arizona. So, I guess we can't put a big emphasis on this game just because they're going to play again in a couple of 10 days or whatever. So, but it would be nice to get that foot up. And, I guess when I say that, UCLA, it's still even a bigger game. They have the more experienced players. We know that because they did return some guys from last year's team that went deep. But they do have 1 loss to Oregon, as I mentioned. So to get this right now and then maybe just split with them, that would that would be ideal for, well, not ideal. Ideal would be, getting the whole job done. But they got to protect the home court. And I heard on Twitter that that's going to be another sellout and the place is going to be jumping. Because, they got to go February 3rd, Marshall. They got to go on the road at Arizona. They still have USC twice, and they're at Oregon to a team they already lost. So it would appear that UCLA, although the more experienced team, have the harder schedule down the stretch here in January, February, March.
I will say, obviously, home court advantage in college basketball is huge. If you're ever looking to bet or just want, make wagers with friends or bet on a line, like a lot of times, and I know this is kind of like a really blanket overstatement, but if it's a close game, a lot of times just bet the home team. Like if you look at the end of the year, like for example, last year, the Big 10, like all the really strong top tier teams who had great regular seasons, most of their home records were like 13-3, 13-3, 12-4, 14-2. Like if you look at almost any really solid conference, Chris, or any conference for that matter in basketball, their win percentage at home is going to be like close to 70 to 80% of wins. So anytime you do want to favor the home crowd, I will say I don't follow the COVID restriction guideline policies of California, but I do remember telling you a couple weeks ago.
I thought you were just saying, I'm not going to follow these guidelines. I thought you were just saying that.
Oh.
I was like, what?
No, I'm still wear the mask and believe in, science and believe in doctors to help us become, safer. I was not dropping off and switching teams into politics here.
Well, I know you're in Texas for a while now, so I didn't know. Keep going. Sorry.
Well, that's a whole different podcast for another day. But what I was going to say was when I did watch the UCLA game a handful of weeks ago, they had no fans at their stadium. So Obviously a UCLA full arena would be huge. A UCLA arena that's empty with no fans, now you lose that energy, the sellout crowds, the home excitement, and now you more have a neutral site game, which probably would favor Arizona. And it could be why Arizona's -2. Again, I'm not exactly sure, what the rules are, because that stuff's changing in every state.
I did read it correctly. They are back.
Okay. Awesome.
This is the LA Times. Super excited to have fans back at Pauley Pavilion. UCLA will embrace noise against Arizona.
And that's good for the sport, too. But you're right. That should be a very fun game. I'll take UCLA, even though they're an underdog by 2 points. But speaking of weird scheduling, I know we're talking Pac-12 here, but just to prove to the point, this past Saturday, St. John's played Seton Hall this past Saturday. They play each other tonight as well. So with COVID, making people all kind of have different postponements, never, ever, ever would you see a regular Big East conference have teams play each other within 2 days in a row. But, with COVID, you got to adjust and adapt and make things happen. But you're right, it does lead to some different scheduling outquirks. And, again, does it really make a difference if Seton Hall and St. John's play each other back-to-back or a month apart? Not really. Same thing for Zona, UCLA, 10 days apart. You're still going to get good games, but it is just kind of an unusual situation, but maybe that can improve your scouting report, or I suppose it could be a positive or negative depending how your coaching staff, views the film and how the players make adjustments. So it could be a better or worse thing for your teams. I guess it's really hard to say, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I also, I guess it would matter if you had someone hurt in those games too, if you had to play them back-to-back. They did that last year for the NBA. They had a lot of back-to-back games like that where it's a home and away. Sometimes I don't think there is home when you play the same team. And they've put that in the schedule here and there this year. They've actually kept it. Not as much, but there's probably 5, 6 of them. At least there is in the Timberwolves. And I kind of like that feeling because it's hard to beat someone back to back like that. And it also kind of bumps up some rivalries if you had a heated game. The people in the local fan base are like, all right, dude, let's see Thursday how that goes because, it got a little feisty. Now I'm looking at the ACC, and it's looking like the Big East in football late 80s, early 90s is what it looks like to me, or a combination of it, actually, because what am I saying? Florida State wasn't in the Big East. They were still in the ACC. But Florida State and Miami, 6-2. Duke just got beat by Florida State. They're 5-2. They're half a game out. They got the most talent maybe in the country potentially. To see if they can glue it together. Notre Dame is, generally just a solid club. Same with Louisville. They're 5-4. Virginia's 5-4, 11-8 overall, 6-4 at home. I'd have to go check their home schedule and stuff like that. But this, talk about, right now it feels like Duke should be like one loss in leading it, but they're the only ranked team. They still are in the top 10, I believe. This is actually going to be, instead of maybe a top-heavy 4 or 5 teams that, maybe 2, 3 of them can go to the Final Four, this seems like the opposite. What do you think here of the ACC? And then I have one more comment on a tweet about an ACC team.
Throughout the past 10, 15 years, Leonard Hamilton is about as reliable of a regular season coach as you can get. I feel like every year Florida State makes the tournament. They maybe don't always make the Sweet 16, but in the regular season, he's about as good as it gets every damn year. So credit to them, again, as usual. Again, I don't think many people expect Miami to be this high. Duke, again, on a given day, as you said, has the most talented roster in the country. Notre Dame, it's been a minute since they've been ranked this high. Wake Forest as well. Credit to them. They've been trying to rebuild that school of basketball. It's been a while. They normally always seem to have a lottery pick every year, but they normally aren't a team contending for March Madness. So, and they got my Tar Heels at 4-3. Louisville's at 5-4. Virginia's 5-4. You're right. It's just kind of weird that a couple of the fact that Notre Dame, Wake Forest, and Miami are all above Carolina, Louisville, Virginia. Hell, Syracuse is 3-5. Clemson's 3-5. The Wolfpack are 3-6. Va-Tech is 2-5. Pitt had been going the right way. If you are a Pitt fan at 2-6, a Va-Tech at 2-5, NC State 3-6, all of those teams, Chris, basically every year, well, especially Va-Tech and NC State, are pretty much always contending for a tournament spot. And Clemson's always been a legit bubble team, and Syracuse has basically been a every year tournament team. Or I know Bayham's always on the damn bubble, and they always let him in. But you have 4 teams in the bottom half of your conference. Virginia's not ranked. This is kind of a weird year where a lot of the blue bloods for ACC basketball are all kind of down, and again, I know that teams have highs and lows, but all of the teams I just mentioned as of right now have under 500 records. That's rare because a lot of those teams normally are ranked or at least in the top 6 of the conference. And for that case, it's not the matter yet. Now, again, long ways to go, but it's almost like the conference kind of flipped the script for a lot of these teams because those numbers are really surprising.
So before we get to the Big Ten, this is a tweet. Now, don't shoot the messenger, okay? This is just a tweet. It's from Jeff Goodman Hoops, all right? It said, North Carolina has now been run off the court by Tennessee, Kentucky, and Miami. I said the Tar Heels were a bubble team the other day. Maybe I was wrong. What do you have to say to Goodman?
Oh,
this
good
bastard.
God.
Taking shots when the squad's a little down.
We're only a game and a half out of first place in the ACC. And we have we have a first-year head coach replacing one of the best of all time. I'm just going to let.
Heard of him. Maybe he's heard of him.
I'm going to let it go. I'm going to use it as bulletin board material for the boys. I'm sure they're going to post that tweet in the locker room.
Oh yeah.
They're going to rally the troops, as they say. And all those schools he mentioned, are pretty good teams. Purdue beat us by 9 points. Purdue was ranked first. Tennessee went on a given day is one of the best defensive teams in the country. And as you said, Kentucky whooped our ass. Like, Kentucky also scored 107 points on Tennessee last week and, like, ran them out the gym, you know. So I guess I'd be a little more concerned if we were losing to the bottom barrel teams I just mentioned. But, yeah, we got beat by 3 good teams who are probably all going to the tournament. Oh, okay, cool. All right. Am I supposed to – what, you know, it's cool. All right, fine. I can live with that. I'm okay, Chris. I'll move on.
We'll check back with Goodman in March, damn it.
Yeah, we will. I'll tweet at him too, and I'll let my voice be heard.
Beyond 0-8 Nebraska, which, dude, they still sell tickets though. They still sell a lot of tickets. Sorry, it's just weird. Beyond them though, right? The Big Ten. I mean, it's early, we get it, but even my Gophers at 2-5 are only 4 games out. You have Michigan State, who's slowly but surely looking the part. They're only they're 15-3, 6-1 in conference. Wisconsin and Illinois sitting at 6-2. That was a big win there. Obviously, we talked about that a second ago. Spartans of Wisconsin at Wisconsin, that was huge. Illinois 6-2. I mentioned that. 5-2 Ohio State. Rutgers, Purdue. Indiana's a pretty good club, and you know, Michigan actually came out with a big win. They're still 3-3, 2.5 games out. I mean, I know it's early, but this thing, man, 5 ranked teams. They may get 12 teams. Okay, hold on. They may get 8 teams. Maybe they'll get 7 teams in the big dance, possibly. Now, my Gophers did get a dub. I don't want to go too detailed into it because I do have a Timberwolves Gopher show next, but it was a much needed stop the bleeding type of win for my Gophers, who, you know, can't be expected to do much this year when they lost like 9 guys because of the coach turnover last year, and they didn't even have 3 of their starters, but that was a big win. But it's much like we're talking about the Big East and not the SEC, but the Big East especially. This thing is wide open. But I got to say, Michigan State, maybe I'm just, you know, recent biased from Friday night, but they're looking damn good too. But this thing is, I mean, Purdue, 2 weeks ago, or how many weeks ago was that they were number 1? They weren't
2 or 3 max.
Yeah, like they're sitting at 5-3, and they're 6th in the conference. And they got a good-ass club. Like, they have pieces. They got a center. They got a backup center. Like, they're good.
So I was a fool. I got home Friday night after coaching, and I turned on Wisconsin and Michigan State. And I remember checking when I was driving home when I was coming home from my game, that I was like, oh, man, Sparty's killing Michigan. Like, oh, damn. Like, I haven't seen Sparty play much this year. And, of course, I turned the game on and see Wisconsin go like an 8-0 run to cut from like an 11-point lead or 12-point lead down to 4 or 6 or something like that. And I was like, oh, I'll live bet. I'll bet a little on the Badgers to take care of business. And then I saw what I can politely say without, you know, setting a world record here for swearing, but Sparty kicked their ass. This was like grown men basketball against little trumps. And this is a Wisconsin team who's played really good this year. But after Michigan went on that run, or Wisconsin went on that run, it was an 11-3 run. And Michigan State had what you would call bigs, and Wisconsin's big guys who were playing like big kids got owned. Normally in college basketball, again, the home team has an advantage just because the home team and the Badgers have a great home court advantage. But after Wisconsin cut it down to 6, that game was a wrap. It was done. I don't know what Izzo said, but when they went down to the post, Wisconsin had no answer. They had Michigan State had 3 possessions in a row where they got offensive rebounds. Like I felt like a fool because like, you know, I haven't seen Sparty play this year. Wisconsin's been good. I've seen them a handful of times, but Michigan State utterly destroyed them. Just offensive board, defensive hustle. There was back-to-back possessions where Michigan State had turnovers because Wisconsin's guard or bigs didn't have anyone pass the ball to. Like, it's one of those things where, when you watch a game, Chris, and since you don't watch from the start, when you can hop in, you can kind of get maybe confused or misled. I was wrongfully misled. And for that, and I know it's only a 12-minute window, but for that 12 minutes, Michigan State obliterated a Wisconsin team who's had a great year so far. But man, those Michigan State bigs were making Wisconsin's bigs look super soft. And that was a great performance. Now, what I probably should realize was Michigan State was going to come in a little worked up because prior to the Wisconsin game, they had lost against Northwestern at home, which was not supposed to happen. So you knew that Izzo was probably going to rally the troops and get him going. But that was a really impressive win by Sparty. I'll tip the cap on that because that was a beatdown, which you normally don't see happen against teams on their home court.
Yeah, that is a good call. Tonight.
And now they go to Illinois for their next game. You're right. It's a loaded conference, and you get very few freebies in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think the Gophers have 3 ranked teams coming in a row. It's definitely loaded, no doubt about it. But as we say, we'll continue to stress this. Let's see what happens come early April. Because, on a Monday night, that's when it all really counts. Tonight, Texas Tech at Kansas. I'll take Kansas. I'm thinking, and we were just talking about Michigan State on another road game at Illinois. Now, according to ESPN's Basketball Power Index, okay, because my co-host, it's part of the contract. I have to mention this because my co-host goes, all his bets go off this. Just kidding, of course, he doesn't like it. 79.3% of winning. That they got the Fighting Illini dominating tonight or Tuesday. Now, I don't think they'll lose 3 in a row, but they better watch out. That's all I'm going to say because Michigan State's hot, but I do like number 24 Illinois in that one. And then I'm going Ukala. Home crowd, fresh in there. What do we got for Vivid seats? Tickets as low as $26. What the hell's going on? I like Ukala over Arizona in their we'll just call it a series here because it's the second one's coming as we mentioned. But there is Providence visit Xavier. Friday night kind of sucks comparatively, but then you have the Big 12 SEC championship challenge, I should say. Some of the big games out of that. Kentucky and Kansas is clearly the biggest game out of there. And let's see if Ty Washington will come back. Tennessee, Texas. Texas kind of needs to rebound a little bit. They need a dub there. Texas Tech, Mississippi State. We talked about how, hey, Mississippi State, let's see what they're about. They got to go on the road at Texas Tech. So Baylor, Alabama, that's another big game there. And then kind of talking about, you could talk about any of these games too. I'm just kind of previewing the schedule. Number 16, this is on Sunday at 11 a.m. They're getting that stuff out of the way before any football starts. Number 16, Ohio State at number 6, Purdue. And then my Gopher squad has to see the Badgers on the road. And they're probably going to be still pissed about that Michigan State game, Marshall.
Yeah, actually, Saturday alone, like you were saying, that's a strong day. LSU at TCU, I'm sure I could probably get a ticket there for $47. Jesus.
That's kind of under the radar too, dude, because TCU's starting to rise up, huh? I didn't see that game.
They're TCU's 13. That actually, I might have to see if my coach can let me go. That'd be sneak out the door a little bit early from practice. That'd be a fun one to go see. LSU at TCU.
Yeah.
Michigan and Michigan State. Even though Michigan's having a bit of a down year with Juwan Howard leading the way. That's still a huge rivalry game. Like you said, Oklahoma Auburn should be fun. Xavier Creighton should be good. Arizona State, Arizona. Arizona's probably expected to kill me. Never know. Baylor at Bama. That Bama place will be going crazy. I always love cheering for St. John's. They go to Nova. Marquette at Providence. Those are probably the 2 best teams right now in the Big East. Kentucky, Kansas. Damn. Wow, that is.
If Ty's back, I'm picking Kentucky, but I think I'm going to stick with Kansas. But if Ty's back, I'm picking Kentucky on the road. Yep, I said it.
All right. Walk in the Fog Allen, get a win. I'd be fine with that. Tennessee goes to Texas. Yes, you're right. Saturday is a hell of a day, and then you get to watch your the good game at 11 a.m. as you mentioned before. We get to watch NFL. Jesus, again, like we were saying before the show. The one good thing about college basketball is even if your team has a bye during the week or an off game or maybe plays like some of the like bottom barrel teams in your conference, you're always going to have some type of good games. With as many teams as there are playing, and obviously some weeks are better than others, as you'll see as throughout the year when we do this, but there's pretty much always going to be a couple of good games to break down or pick. Now, they may not turn out to be good games, but at least on paper, college basketball with 355 Division I teams, within a given week, you're probably going to have a handful of games. You're like, damn, that could be good, and hopefully those turn out to be that way. But, yeah, that's Saturday. That's about as good as you can get, which is the first Saturday we've not had NFL or college football in quite a while. So the college basketball world is helping pick up the slack, Chris.
So are you just going to duck the picks this week, or are you going to pick a couple games? I already went on a limb a couple of times.
I will join you.
We pick games on this, too. It's not just college football. We pick games on the college basketball, too.
I will join you taking UCLA. I think with the home crowd back in the Poly Pavilion, I think they'll get a win. I'll never pick Kansas, so I'll definitely join you with Kentucky there as well.
So you got Texas Tech beating them tonight then, too.
I'm legally obligated to say yes. I do realize if I pick against Kansas every show this year, I might have a losing record in that, but I will never say, hey, I'm cheering for Kansas. God, nope. So I will anti-pick Kansas and Duke every game this year. I cannot cheer for either of those schools. So I will. My reputation may get punished by win-loss record, but I will not swallow my pride and pick either of those schools. Yeah.
That helps.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that I know obviously Bama, as we said a little bit ago, has been underachieving, I would say, to the standards from what they had last year, but would you see a potential Baylor upset as they walk into Tuscaloosa for this upcoming Saturday, my friend?
Well, I'm just kidding. I have my eye on them a little bit because I'm looking for an upset of the week this week. And I did have my eye on this one. On the road. Like offensively speaking, and let me check really quick. I know Bama's up there. Yeah, 81 points. We know Baylor is kind of known for points. Last year they were nasty with the defense, and this year they are as well. So they're putting up 81. Baylor's basically put up 79, but they only give up about 60 points, whereas Alabama gives up 74. So in an offensive showcase where you're just going to outscore a team and it's going to be, I don't think they can get to 85 or 90 on Baylor, but they may just go out there and just out-offense them. I guess I could see that. But I did have my eye on that for an upset of the week. I'm still kind of looking at it, still kind of judging it a little bit. But it's funny that you bring that one up because that is on my radar for upset of the week, sir.
Yeah, and I've never. It always kind of seems weird why they do that challenge in the middle of the year, but just for the sake of like mixing up for a little bit of a schedule break, it is kind of fun. And they normally have done a pretty good job of picking up good matchups, and it normally is a pretty fun time for when we get to break these down. A couple of years ago, Oklahoma might give up a bit of more of a fight. Obviously, Oklahoma right now 12-7, 1-3 away this year. Like their win-loss record probably isn't going to scare Auburn, but as we do know, Chris, whenever a team gets ranked number one, because we'll go through some type of stretch this year where the number one team loses 3 weeks in a row. Like that's a college basketball almost a given. I'm not saying it's going to happen this week, but you'll see a trend where the number one team switches places like 3 times in a row because, you get that extra little ego and then every school playing you has the extra, if it's on the road, that extra little nudge to take down your rankings. So,
and I think it skews that way even more, to the team, like you got a target on your back now.
Yeah, you're right. It does. It is hard to consistently stay up top for a very long time in college basketball. And now again, Purdue had a good run. They're still a good squad, but yeah, that number one ranking, that puts target on your back, and that makes life can make life very difficult for those teams.
Funny that you mentioned Purdue, because the other one I was eyeballing was Iowa at home. And when you see it on paper, it's like, man, now Purdue shoots the ball better than them clearly, but that's the one I'm eyeballing too. Purdue at Iowa. That'll be Thursday night, I believe. Wednesday or Thursday night. That's one. I think it's on FS1. Yeah, it's Thursday night, FS1. That's another one where I'm looking at it thinking, man, upset of the week? I don't know. I don't think Minnesota can pull off an upset against Ohio State that same night, but if they get a couple of their starters back, they're definitely playing like hard all the way through the game and keeping games probably tighter than they should considering their roster. Any other items you want to get to before we shut this thing down, sir?
Oh yeah. I got one game left, and I promised our listeners, and I'm not gonna go back on my word. I always try to be the man of integrity that I am. So you're gonna want to go to ESPN, Chris. Go to Wednesday the 26th. This beauty is at 6 p.m.
And go to Division I, right? Not top 25.
it is Division I, sir.
Okay.
And it is in the American Conference. No, Patriot League.
I was going to say American. American's pretty good.
The Patriot League Conference.
Okay, you got to be more descriptive than that.
The Holy Cross Crusaders against American University.
This, dude. It is so hard to find.
I'll give you a bit of it.
Is it top?
6 p.m. It's near the top. 6 p.m. Central, Wednesday. You have the Holy Cross Crusaders, who are 3-14 and 1-4 in conference, against American University, who's 5-12, 1-4. So combined, these teams have played, if I do some quick math here, 17, 34. These teams have played a combined 34 games and have 8 wins. So clearly, you're getting a barn burner of a matchup. Chris, for the first crappy college basketball pick of the week, will the Holy Cross Crusaders, with their peasants holding pitchforks and sticks and knives, walk into American University in Bender Arena in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and pull off a shocker? Or will the American University mascots, the Eagles, the Golden Eagles?
Yeah, I was going to say, what the hell are their mascots? Wasn't this on a commercial years ago? American University.
I think it was.
I could have sworn you could just online the shit out of that school and get a degree. Yeah, man. If these Holy Cross
Crusaders.
Oh, Jesus, that's pretty intense when you really think about that. But I get it. It's cool.
Yeah.
If the Holy Cross comes in on a bender from studying so much, the good book, of course.
Yeah.
And they think they can come into Bender Arena on a Wednesday night, tickets as low as $9, get in there. I mean, it packs 3,400 in the gym. They're going to have, I'm actually not going to make that joke. Because it's still too fresh. But, yeah, you're right. This game sucks. This game does suck. I noticed American University, online, preferably, can pass the ball a little better per game. That's something that kind of stands out to me. Spread the ball around. They could shoot better. This is a crappy game. And I'm looking at both teams, and they've been in somewhat competitive games. I would say American lately have been in a little bit more competitive. And I look at Lehigh. And when you can look at Lehigh, at least as a college basketball fan, you know who Lehigh is, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And now American only lost 63-61, right? Where it was 77-69. Now maybe that's two late threes. I didn't watch the game, so who knows? Maybe that doesn't mean shit. But I'm gonna go more the Patriot way. American University Eagles to basically stop the crusade of what's been going on here for Holy Cross. So I got American. I need that jingle. I wish I knew it was this game. If they win next week, I'm going to find that commercial and I'm going to have the jingle on the show. But I'm going American University. By the way,
God bless you.
I have some. I didn't get it in, but I timed it nicely. I have some Coach K since it is his last season.
Oh, good
God!
God!
In at the buzzer.
Oh,
I
good
have
God.
2 clips. One
Jesus.
that I'm going to play periodically through the season. Okay,
Oh,
so I have some
Lord.
audio clips that this is going to be great. This is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, God.
But yeah, I got American University.
This might be the last year of our podcast. We've been friends for over a decade. I'm not sure I can handle this moment.
It's too late to play it because we're at the hour 6 mark. But I literally that night after we had the little Coach K thing and I had a quota, I said I'm going to get a press conference that's going to irritate him. And then I have his introductory, his 1982 or something like that, his first introductory press conference, baby.
On that note, I'm left. I'm rarely a man who's left speechless. So I'm just gonna say, stay safe, wear a mask. I hope you're able to enjoy this cold winter time around you, and March Madness will be around the corner sooner than we know. So on that note, God, have a great night. Thanks as always for listening. The boys are out tonight. Peace.